Okay, today my goal is to try and give you a rundown of what has happened to me since November 2017 and why that makes it such an influential date and infamous date um, within myself, my personal history. So, right before November 2017, not right before, about a year before, I was traveling. I was traveling up throughout Portland, Oregon. I went off to going off in a pursuit of happiness, trying to become a better man for my daughter and things like that. And I was traveling throughout the city of Portland for quite a while, and I ended up making some friends there, and it was great. It was a really good time. All of my writings and things from that were extremely positive. I faced some hardships and some great adventures, and I was up to at one point doing like 5 saintly deeds a day. No matter how big or little. I was having a really good time. And so I was led by a man. We'll call him Johnny D, right? I was led by him out west, from Portland, and we went through Salem, Oregon, and we hitched out west and made it to the Pacific City, which is the Pacific coast of Oregon. And we were out there, and we found like a 1965 Bordeaux. We're like one of 5 owners in the country at the time, and everything was cool. We were smoking on Dutch Treat and just getting ripped by the beach, and everything was awesome. We found some hot babe and went and got just totally lifted and came down the coast. And I ended up in this little creepy little town called Coos Bay. This is a little prequel. This is still 17, but we haven't reached November yet. This is almost the end of summer. And I come down there, and I'm in Coos Bay, Oregon. And it's like Scooby Doo town. Everything's super creepy and things like that. And eventually, I get down from Coos Bay to Carson City, which is just a horrible little crack town on the northern edge of California. And from there, I take a bus to Arcata. Now in Arcata, I meet what I think to be my tribe, right? I'm a traveling guy, and so I think that these guys, are like me, after like kind of like the same ideals and stuff. This was definitely naivete, because I ended up traveling. They're planning on heading down south. Like, oh, I might stop in San Francisco, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm trying to get to Sacramento. That's kind of on the way. And this is around Halloween time, and I was there for Halloween in Arcata. There was a happening there, and it was pretty magical, at the moment. And so I met a group of travelers I trusted. Unfortunately, John Uhuru, which means freedom, black dude with dreads, and some other cats. Who were kind of along for the ride, but kind of knew what was going on. This kind of like wormy little guy named Jerms, and his girlfriend from Australia, and this one black dude, named like Totem, and we were all going out, and everything was really cool. And so we go on down through Eureka, and we drop off one of the guys, one of the girls, who I wish I had stayed with. And we finally make it to Garberville, California. And now this is where November 2017 starts. So in Garberville, California, I met up with this group of people with a convertible school bus. And they had a school bus with the top stripped off, and they used it for running around town. They're kind of like famous around town, and I met up with them. And so it was the idea that they had some trim jobs. We go cut weed or whatever. That's kind of what I was looking for. Just looking for going to like make some money on my traveling journey, and meet some cool peeps along the way. And so I go up to this little Manson shack. It's up in the mountains, like this, like a crazy mountain run to get there. Like you really have to like drive, drive the fuck out of a car to get up there. And so we make it up there to this little Manson shack, and I'm up in there, and as soon as I get there, I'm like, it's a trap, is what I say, but I don't feel comfortable enough to leave, because I still feel like I trust the people I came with. And this is the biggest mistake I ever made in my life. I should have turned around and ran. And so like the bus closes in, and we get out, and we get in this little shack, and got this little dude named Toshi fucking chopping wood, kind of making threatening gestures, and there's some other cats around there. This is Garberville, California. It's like Humboldt, but it's all fucking fucked up. And so we get there, and they repeatedly play like the same movies over and over again. It was Ghost in the Shell and some the third Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man Tell No Tales, right? And this is the place where I believe, like in another world, I think I could possibly be dead. And so one night I eat some mushrooms, and then something completely crazy happens. So like they put this movie on, and what it shows is it shows like an advanced version of my master who I met in heaven, the man who I'm reincarnated from. And he has a giant mechanism behind him. I call it the dodecahedron mechanism, and it's made out of magnets, and it's a spaceship engine that I invented, but actually came to life as an interdimensional transport device. And this man is standing in front of it, and it's rotating behind him, and he's talking to like a little robot that kind of that represents me, I believe. And he's saying they made that this bad little robot's made a mistake, right? And so then something crazy happens. There was an extreme interdimensional event where like this giant ball swirls around and combines a whole bunch of dimensions. And then as I'm looking down, this dude totem's on the floor, and his teeth are chattering. He's making a strange face, and everybody's kind of swirling around. And some fucking like suits, like some fucking army, some like it looks like kind of like army, some like camo suit guys run in to the fucking shack really fucking quick and wrap me up in some type of like VR device. And so that's what happened. And so since then, since November 2017, since then, the next day, I was actually frightened enough to leave this shack, and I ran out with my belongings. Like I had a rucksack with like a like sleeping bag and pad, like a gear for traveling. I ran 3 miles through the woods, no trail, just blazed through the trees until I found this logging compound, and they're like, "Hey, you need to get the hell out of here." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, right on. Well, can you take me back to town?" And luckily they did, and they took me back to town, like through a bunch of like weed farms and stuff. And they're like, "You're lucky you didn't get much farther than this, because you probably would have been shot on sight." And so I eventually make it back to town to Garberville. And before then, life was pretty normal. People would interact with each other, and I could have conversations. But as soon as I got back after this incident at the shack, everything was completely different. Like the Muzak and the grocery store was singing songs about me. Everything was going on. Were people commenting on what I was thinking about. And this was 2 years ago, and it hasn't changed one bit. And so I thought, at first I thought that this was a citywide government psyop. I thought that it was just Garberville, California, and I got on the computer, and you can go check my Facebook, Matt Emerson at facebook.com. It's public, you can go read it, and it'll talk about how I thought it was a citywide government psyop, and it turned out to be much, much greater than that. So I hop on the bus to try and to leave, and eventually I do. And I go to Eureka, California, where I go to stay at a little mission, where things start to get very, very strange. Everybody at the mission is commenting on what I'm thinking about. Everything seems to revolve around me. They're torturing me, like when I sleep there, because I'm sleeping in like dorm rooms. And I woke up one night, and everybody's around me, like making noises and gestures to try and influence the dreams that I'm having, like some type of like acting troupe of demonic dreams. I no longer have dreams anymore. I haven't had a dream since then. I call them nistrucks, because they represent what these people are, or what these creatures are. They are called artificial constructs, and and so I call them nice drugs because they influence and control my dreams, which is horrible. Um, so I'm in Garberville, California at this mission, and I make it back up to Arcata, and I see some of the tribe or whatever, who I'd met back in October, but they're not the same. They call themselves like mechanics, and they're talking about, oh, I can work the wrenches, and they're trying to get data out of my mind. They're trying to get information about who I am and what I've done and things like that. And they go through trying to work through these kind of psychological mental exercises, like an advanced Xeno MK Ultra. And eventually, I leave. I actually got arrested for sleeping in a sleeping bag, believe it or not. And they take me back down to Eureka, and from there, I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna go to Sacramento, my hometown, to go see if my dad's still there. My dad could go see my dad anyways. He was dying of brain cancer, and so I wanted to go wish him well and see how he's doing. And so I tried to get to Sacramento, and I ended up in San Francisco. This guy's like, well, I'm not going to Sacramento, I'm going to San Francisco. I'm like, okay. And so the guy who picks me up, he seemed like a pretty cool cat. I recognized him kind of from before, but I'd never met him before, right? I'd met him like off somewhere else, huh? And we do some fucking dabs in the fucking car, and we're driving down, and the whole world, like along like the side of the trip down there, describes why they came to get me in the first place. And it was because of when I was laced with, I was a heroin addict. I was laced with some DMT back in 2014, and I shot up like a point 0.3 of DMT, which is more than like any clinical study ever done on mankind. It's 1,000 times more than you need to. And so when I did that, I was given the creating tools of the universe. They gave me tools to create, and it was disguised as a game, and I beat the game, and I ended up creating a whole universe, a whole subspecies of people actually. And so like the world along the way from this trip from Garberville or from Eureka down to San Francisco told me that I was in fact God. I actually created the whole world I sent myself back into. I was their God. God. I am God. And so I get down to San Francisco and I start making my way in the city, and I make my way to the Haight and Haight Ashbury, and hanging out, dropping acid with the hippies, and going down to Turk Street, and just getting lifted at like 3 in the morning, and hanging out at Washington Square, just being an old man, and going out to the wharf and panhandling, and it was pretty magical. But the whole time, the world revolved around me. Everything I did, everything I said, revolved around me. And I did have some kind of like worshippers at this point. These constructs are revolving around me. Almost did kind of come up and worship me, and they trained me in certain ways. They tried to teach me a whole lot about like time and universe manipulation, about constructing of the universe, which I can still do. It's just I just don't like who the universe holds now. It's just at this point, I just don't like it. And I would never give credit for it because it's not worth what I lost. I would much rather live as human being with other human beings, which I totally lost, like all my friends, all my family, everything. And so I'm down there just cruising around Frisco for a good minute, and just conquering the city, just becoming pretty well known, and not taking any names, and getting a whole lot of answers. And eventually I kind of got fed up because just because I was just getting just decrepit. It was wearing me down. I was doing some dopes, and like they were having some adverse side effects. Like, I don't know if you know this, but if you do like methamphetamines, there are bugs hidden within the drugs. And so when you do these things, there are bots within these drugs that make bugs come out of your skin, like physically. So I had lice really really bad, and like they were popping out of like my head, and they come out your eyes, and it's just horrible. And you're sitting there just like and it's real too, you know. And so like I was just like, fuck this. I'm gonna try and go back to Sacramento to go try and get back with my father, the original plan, after having this little stint in San Francisco. And I eventually do. I make it up. I make it up through San Rafael, which is like the garbage basin of Frisco, and I walk through Marin County. I walk through Napa Valley, experiencing this crap the whole time. And eventually I get picked up like halfway through Napa Valley, like hitchhiking with a bamboo stick with a suitcase on the back of it, looking like Hunter S. Thompson crossed with Truman Capote. I mean, I had like a beach hat with like some round glasses and a tweed suitcase on a bamboo pole. And some hot young little blonde lady picks me up, and she gives me a ride up to Sacramento with some messages along the way, right? Actually, we listened to Naco. And it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too, out there. And so I end up in Sacramento, and this is where like, okay, I'm gonna go find my father. I'm gonna go do what I need to do. And so I start running around the streets. I eventually make it back to my home little town where I grew up, Roseville. And I like, these are my stomping grounds when I was a kid. But I was grown up, and I had like, I had my wings. I knew how to live on the streets and things like that. So I went and did it as just like a street person, and I started getting clout in the neighborhood and around like that. And so I had normal people who would come up and toss me a couple of dollars here and there, and I just used my skills as I needed to do. And eventually I found this security guard who actually knew my father. I talked to her about it. It was this weird T-shirt that I had found that had my last name on it, and she's like, "Hey, I know this guy with this last name. It was real serendipity, right?" And I was like, "Oh, that's my dad. Where do you know? Any idea where he is?" And so I track him down. Um, uh, and in between then, I had gotten arrested. I got arrested for putting trash on the ground of a liquor store. And when I got arrested, the lady who arrested me from the store said I had threatened to kill her. Had said, "I will kill you," which is something I would never say. "I will kill you." I mean, no one even really threatens like that. I don't know. So I had to do like 3 months in jail, and I'd go to trial. And this lady came, and she was an artificial construct. She lied on the stand, and they actually recreated the security video with the construct of me, with a clone version of me, kind of altering the video the way it happened. Luckily, like, I was able to get on the stand and talk about what actually happened and get off. But while I was in there, I was in solitary. They put me in solitary confinement, and when I dream, when you dream, DMT is released in your brain. So these creatures actually use this chemical to create physical worlds around me. So they actually physically altered me. They put a surgical like device called a construct in my groin to make me impotent. So like they actually made it so my sexual organs don't work, and they did this in jail when I was in solitary confinement. It's absolutely horrible. And still to this day, I'm still messed up. This was years ago. It's not like it goes away. And so I've been surgically altered by these beings, and they try to get me to say soldier just now through augmentation. They try to control what I say. Anyways, I finally find my father, or my artificial peepaw, as I ended up calling him, because it wasn't my dad. It wasn't the man who raised me. He was older, of course, because it's been years since I've seen him. But age doesn't completely change a person. And he was doing odd things that I'd never seen any other human being before. Like, he was talking with his friends in other rooms, and this tongue was like like tongues moving back and forth, like not like Arabic or anything like that, like an absolutely alien language. And so he's speaking in alien tongues with other people in other rooms, and just doing horribly like suspicious things, like kind of like death threats, but just enough to kind of get away with it. And so I eventually called him out on it, because he poisoned me one day. He gave me a cocktail, and he said think. And then all of a sudden it tasted different. It was salty. It was poisonous. It gave me ill effects. And so I called him out on it. I called him out on being an artificial construct, and he flipped. He freaked out. And normally, like in you know, that's not even a phrase used in circa 2018 at the time. Human vernacular, artificial construct. If I called you an artificial construct, you'd be like, what? Most likely you'd be like, what the fuck is that? Anyway, like that's not like a insult. It's not a term that's even in the human vernacular. But when I called him this, he absolutely flipped, because it was this sudden realization, that I knew. And he flipped out. And ever since then, I just kept getting poisoned by these creatures ever since. And I think this was back like like November, December 2018. So I've been poisoned ever since. And there was a whole like journey through like from Humboldt down to Frisco to Sacramento, back to to Sacramento, and that's through San Francisco for a good bit, and to Sacramento, my hometown. And then I realized after like I watched so many malfunctions, like whole grocery stores of people just malfunctioning, like I don't know, like a bad droid from Star Wars, just like slamming stuff down on the ground. They like to slam things around and make noises and things like that, and it, just weird. And eventually I made I kind of like gave up on my artificial peepaw, because he was just this little kind of sickled clone version of what my dad used to be, poisoning me constantly and saying a whole bunch of alien stuff. So I started traveling up north, and I made it to Placerville, which is like this tiny little mountain town, which is really cool. And I traveled up there with a lady that I just got out in a jail. They picked me up one night for like drinking in public or whatever. And I got out the next day with this lady, and she's like, "Oh, okay, hey, I'm trying to go to Placerville, right?" And I'm like, "Hey, I've been traveling for quite a bit. I'll take you up there, sure." And we go on up there, and it was kind of cool. She was definitely like an artificial construct, like the things she said and the things she did. But we ended up making it, right, and like getting it up there. And it was actually my birthday along the way, and it was kind of cool. My birthday, drank like a fifth of fucking Evan Williams, and did the nasty underneath like a Rayleigh's parking sign at a fucking grocery store. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. Made it up to Placerville. And I get up there, and it was kind of cool. The whole town's kind of against me, and like there's like a local like traveling group of kids there, but they were all trying to make death threats and saying they're gonna do horrible things to me. So I'm like, peace. I'm like, I'm gonna go over here, right? So I kind of ditched all of them, unless I needed something to smoke on, and then I'm in the town, and then this is when the whole augmentation thing kind of starts. Like, as I would be sitting there, holding a cardboard sign, please help if you can, thank you. They would try and jack things into my back and say, we're augmenting you. And this has been happening ever since. And so I was up there, and it was cool. I was going to like the bagel shop every day, eating bagels, and I managed to make it to like I created some happenings at like some like local bars and stuff, like just like creating giant balls of energy that everybody could get around, and it was pretty cool. I could tell you a lot about San Francisco. But it was kind of cool for a second, until just things got just so horrible I had to leave. And I went back down to Sacramento, and I was like, you know what? I have to find out the truth. And so the rest of my family lives down in Texas. And so I'm like, oh, I got to get back to Texas. And I talk with some friends down here, and they get me a bus ticket. And that's where you can see like pretty much the start of my YouTube videos as of now. Is the journey down from here to Texas. This is when the artificial constructs started calling themselves exogeny and just doing horrible things. Just constant like increased poisoning and just atrocious acts wherever I went. And that's pretty much like the story of what's been going down. It's like the rundown between like here in 2017, except it hasn't stopped. I'm still here in my family's hometown of Dallas, and I'm still experiencing this wherever I go. Every single place. I can't go to the library. Now these things they make little popping noises, and they pop out kind of gas or radiation, and everywhere I go, even my friends, like my best friend and she used to be my girlfriend, was actually over here the other night, and she shot tetrazine in my face, which is one of the chemicals they use. She like made this gesture, and immediately in my mouth it tasted acrid and poisonous, and she's done countless other things that are just inherently evil. And so the thing is that it hasn't stopped. I still haven't met one other human being since November 2017. Because if a normal human being talks, no matter how hard you think, right, you can't stop them from talking. But since these are like mentally parasitic creatures, subspecies, they run a platform out of my mind. And so like if I think hard enough, I can stop any sentence. I can stop any conversation, and they try and transmit and communicate things to me, but they won't recognize them personally or verbally like how human beings communicate. It's just like an undercutting way of mental manipulation, because their basis of living is just pure deception. And so I just want to let you know just a little bit of the history. Maybe you'll find it interesting. Maybe not. Either way, it's the truth. To thine own self be true, and I am. And I wish I had positive news. My favorite thing to talk about is positive news. I wish I could be like, hey, this happened. I wish this was a positive vlog, because there's so many great things that were happening before this time. And maybe someday I'll start getting down to the great stories, but at the moment I'm experiencing so much strife and turmoil from these creatures around me that I believe these things need to be known, because it not only implicates the captured manipulation, destruction, mind control of like the whole human race or any organic species. It's just something that needs to be known, and I hope this information is helping someone out there, and my suffering's not in vain. Until next time, I hope next time I have something more positive to say.